Welcome to Whiskey's a Journey. My name is Peter Fasciano. Today is a First Friday Flight Fight. We're in November. Every first Friday of every month, I do a flight of a given whiskey from a specific distillery, taste through it, and then let you guys know which one I like the best from these core releases. So based on the thumbnail, you already saw it. We're doing Green River today. So let's jump into it and introduce the bottles. The first one that I'll be tasting is going to be, well, actually, it's not the first one I'm going to taste. I don't know which one I'm going to taste first, but the first bottle of Green River is going to be the Green River Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 45% ABV. All of the mash bills, with the exception of the rye, are basically the same. This one is 70% corn, 21% rye, and then 9% malted barley, and they use 2 and 6 row barley. At the time that I paid for this, it was $35.99, and I ended up getting it in California during one of our barbecue competitions. It has since been started to be distributed in Arizona. Not positive what the price is in Arizona because I don't have a reason to buy a new one. I already have this one. Bottle number 2 is going to be the wheated bourbon. The wheated bourbon is also 45% ABV, same mash bill, but instead of 21% rye, they flip it and they do 21% wheat. And the malted barley is just the 6 row barley. That's going to be in glass number 2. I'm going to mix these up. I have them stickered on the bottom so I can keep them straight. Next bottle, we're taking a look at the full proof. The full proof is coming in at 59.5%, 59.05% ABV, and it's the same exact mash bill. I don't know if they're using 2 and 6 row barley, but it's 70% corn, 21% rye, and then the barley, based on what I can tell, is just malted barley. If you know any different, let me know in the comments down below. That'll be in my third glass, and then the fourth glass is going to be the rye. The rye is a 95.5 rye, coming in at 47.5% ABV, and I ended up paying $36.99 for this, and then the full proof, I ended up paying $49.99. All of the prices that I ever mention on this channel are before taxes. So that's going to be in the fourth glass. Let me go ahead and clear these things out of here, mix up the glasses, give you some information about the giveaway, and then we'll get into it. All right, so I do have a November giveaway happening. In all of my giveaways, I have the rules to that in the description below. Every giveaway that I have in the beginning months, I always do a First Friday Flight Fight. That First Friday Flight Fight is always going to be included into the giveaway if you end up winning. If you want to support the channel, you can donate any increment of $5. There is a heart underneath the video with like a little dollar sign in it. I think it's called a super thanks. You can donate increments of $5. Every increment of $5 is going to get you one entry into the giveaway. At the end of the month or at the beginning of December, I'll spin my randomized wheel for the people that have donated. If you win, you will win this flight along with 6 2-ounce samples. Well, actually, let's go ahead and do 8 2-ounce samples of anything that I reviewed in the month of November. All right, let's get the lids off of these things and start this lineup. I don't do these to do an actual comparison. I'm just wanting to see what each of these distilleries have to offer in their lineup. I know some people say, well, it's not a fair comparison to put a rye up against a wheated bourbon or a full proof up against a low proof bourbon. I understand all that. I don't think that's really the point. I just want to taste through what they have. And sometimes my palate prefers something a little bit less proof, maybe sometimes even towards a rye. So let's jump into it. Here we go. They smell sweet, I can tell you that. Smells a little bit wet cardboardy. Got some vanilla, a little bit of cherry. Not a lot of spice to speak of at all. Definitely has a damp note coming through, like a damp cardboard. All right, let's go ahead and get it on the palate. Coming across as pretty soft. That's expected with the ABV. Flavor-wise, it doesn't really have much of a punch as far as flavor goes. There is a little bit of a cherry note, a slight amount of vanilla. It's not very viscous. The flavors are pretty muted. I wouldn't say that they're bad, but it's nothing that is outstanding. It doesn't really jump out of the glass. All right, let's get a rinse of water and move on to glass number 2. All right, glass 2. Not getting a whole lot out of glass number 2. It's missing the vanilla note or the damp cardboard so it doesn't seem as musty or earthy. Little apple, little sugar, little cotton candy. Maybe I'm detecting a little bit more proof. Maybe stinging a little bit. Oh, yeah. Okay, so when you go back and forth, it was difficult to pick out anything. But going from this to this, there is a piney note that comes through on this one. So my guess is this is going to be the rye. Yeah, very sweet, very subdued. Smells okay. Nothing great. Get it on the palate. All right, there it is. That's definitely the rye. It's got a rye spice, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of pine, very subdued vanilla notes, and there's more spice than really anything else. A little dry, a little bitter, finish is rather long. And is that mint also? Is there like a little bit of a mint coming through? I don't know if that's it or not. I'm going to wait until I kind of A/B compare these to figure out if there was mint. Let's go ahead and move on to glass number 3. Actually, let me get a rinse of water. Now get on to glass number 3. All right, there's an explosion of notes in here. All of your typical bourbon, the vanilla, the brown sugar, the caramel. It's nice and sweet, have a little bit of red berry note. Definitely more vibrant on the nose than the first two. Smells like your typical bourbon. Let's get this thing on the palate. Well, I wasn't expecting that bitter note. It's bitter, it's oaky, and it's drying. A little bit of pepper, and all of those traditional bourbon notes are there. The vanilla, the brown sugar, and the caramel. They're just very subdued, and the spice that I'm getting and the oakiness and the drying and the bitterness is a little bit over the top that kind of hides those nice typical bourbon notes. Glass number 3 definitely smells better than it tastes. Let's get a rinse of water, move on to the last glass. All right, last glass. Whoa, smells just like glass number 3. Just a little more proof to it. Not just a little, a lot. This is stinging the nose. But it smells very similar to this. Yeah, almost the exact same thing, with the exception of a little more ethanol heat coming out of the glass to sting the nose. Vanilla, brown sugar, a little bit of pepper and ginger spice. Get a little bit of red apple. And it does smell a little bit oaky. Let's get it on the palate. Yeah, definitely. On that sip, radiates with the ABV. It has to be the full proof. And I gotta tell you, I think the full proof is bringing out a little bit more of a cherry note, some vanilla, some red berries, not necessarily red apple. And that severe bitterness or drying is not happening with this one that I got from glass number 3. All right, so that was my initial drinking of these 4. I'm gonna spend a little bit more time with these, rinse my palate in between, A/B and compare them, go back the other direction, and then when I come back, I'm gonna give you my order and then reveal to myself which one I like the most. All right, easy decision here. So after going back the other direction, I also went back and A/B compared some of these, and that minty note that I was talking about that I wanted to double check to see if it was coming through in glass 2 definitely came out as I went back the other direction. And then it really came out when I A/B'd and compared these two, and then went back to this one and then back to here. So I think this plays off of these two rather well, and it really brings out some pretty good minty notes that are typical in some ryes. Not all, but some. So let's go ahead and reveal what I have in my last place. Glass number 3 just didn't fit into the lineup. It was a little bit too bitter, a little bit too much oak. The sweet and the spice were very unbalanced. It didn't seem to be a very cohesive, balanced type pour. A little too much oak. The bitterness was there, not the most pleasant on the palate. So that ended up being in my 4th place. And 3rd place, right next to it, I ended up saying that this one was sweet pepper, herbal, and that mint pine note was there. I don't think that the sweetness balanced out with the spice or the herbal note. And I would have liked it to be just slightly sweeter, to be a little bit more complex or balanced. So glass 2 is in 3rd place. In 2nd place, right next to it, this wet cardboard earthy note, along with the sweetness and how soft it hit the palate, was a nice change of pace compared to these two. And I do have to say, after sipping on this one, going back the other direction, I ended up getting a little bit of a cannabis note coming through as well. And I don't know if that's the earthy note that comes along with that, but it went quite well with the oaky notes that I was getting. And in first place, I don't think there was any, difficult decision here. As soon as I had this, based on what I got on the nose and on the palate, this surpassed the flavor profile and how well balanced it was compared to the other three. I like the proof. I like the candy sweetness, red fruit, oak, and all of those traditional bourbon notes were there. The vanilla, the brown sugar, and the caramel. So let's get to the reveal. Let's see what I liked least in this lineup. This was the normal bourbon, just the straight bourbon whiskey. That surprises me. I don't remember it being that oaky and bitter, but that's why you do blinds. That today ended up in fourth place. Third place was right next to it. Had to have been the rye, and this is the rye. I don't consider myself that much of a rye lover, but it's saying something that I liked the rye over the straight bourbon whiskey. If this was a little sweeter, I think it would have surpassed what I got in second place, which has to be the wheated bourbon, because this pretty much has to be the full proof. So, yep, so this is the wheated bourbon. I am a wheated bourbon fan, or a wheat whiskey fan, but it came very close to losing over the rye, which means first place has to be the full proof, which it is. So I'd be interested to hear from you in the comments down below. What do you guys think of Green River? Have you had all 4 bottles? I do believe they have single barrel releases as well. I've never seen those, but of the standard releases, which ones have you had? Which one do you prefer over the others? Before I let you go, let me go ahead and throw these things into a Glencairn and see what the blend is like. And while I'm doing this, I'll take the opportunity to let you know that if you are liking this information and you are not subscribed to the channel and you'd like to subscribe to the channel, just go ahead and click on that little subscribe button right down there. Turn that bell notification on, because I produce videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you end up liking this information and you think it's worthy to share with somebody, do me a favor, share it with anybody that's in the whiskey world, and let's get on to the blend and see if it's worth it. All right, that's a ton of cherry. There's more cherry coming out of the blend than anything here. I don't even think I got cherry in any of them. I know I got red berry in this one, but it's now turned to cherry. Still a good amount of oak. The vanilla is there. Not picking up any earthy or cannabis notes. Yeah, I think it just smells like a typical bourbon with a cherry accent. All right, let's get it on the palate. Oh, wow. Wow, that is not bad at all. I think there's a little bit more of depth of flavor. The finish lingers around a little bit more. I don't get that bitter, tangy, oaky note. The higher ABV from the full proof and a little bit of higher ABV from the rye, I think, is coming through. I like the cherry, the vanilla. I really do like how it has settled down the oak and the bitterness. Yeah, I would say that this is a blend that is worth trying out if you have these bottles. Now, do I like the blend more than the full proof? I don't think I do, but I would definitely consider testing different types of ratios to see if I can get it elevated above this one. All right, that's all I have for you today. Wherever you're at in your journey, I hope you're enjoying it, and we'll talk to everybody later. Bye.